Hi everybody, Jane here, and this is part 1 of my October 2019 wrap-up. I mostly read books for the Disability Readathon this month. However, I had 4 read and 1 DNF books that were outside of the Disability Readathon, so I wanted to make a separate video for them. The first book I will go over is the one that I did DNF, and that was Tempest. Tempest is a historical fiction that I didn't get too far into. Basically, a woman is coming out west to meet the man that she has agreed to marry. He is a doctor, and she is wanting to kind of start a new life over. I didn't get far enough to really understand why. As we are going out there, she is on a stagecoach. The stagecoach is attacked, and we find out that she has a background in sharpshooting. She shoots at the guys attacking the stagecoach. I believe one of the members of the stagecoach is injured or killed, and she helps save the stagecoach. As they are approaching town, they are accosted, or she thinks they're being accosted by another group of ruffian-looking men, and she starts shooting at them and does hit one, and the one she hits happens to be the man she is betrothed to. So this causes a lot of problems. Obviously, he is very offended that she would shoot at him, and she explains, we just got attacked. I was just trying to defend the stagecoach and do what I thought was right. It was kind of a mess as far as getting started. It was so fast. I didn't really have time to connect with her. And then as soon as we meet him, I instantly disliked him. It looks like it's going to be a hate-to-love romance, maybe, because instantly they don't like each other. He insinuates that if she knows how to shoot and somebody taught her how to shoot, she must not be a very ladylike woman or a very virtuous woman. So basically right away I was like, nah, dog, I just don't like you. So it didn't end up being a good match for me. As I said, I didn't get super far. I knew right off as soon as we were introduced to him and that this wasn't going to be a book I could appreciate, because I really need to like the hero, and I just didn't like him at all. I thought he was very judgmental. He was all like, I wanted a lady and this is what I'm getting. And it's like, you're in the Wild West. She just got attacked by a stagecoach and saved people's lives. I'm sorry that she shot you, but instead of being like, dang, she's going to be great at defending my house and making sure my kid's safe, because I guess he brought her out there to be a mother to his child because his wife had died. So yeah, I just was not feeling it. So I didn't get very far into it. I feel like if you love the hate to love trope, and I don't really, you might enjoy it more. But yeah, that one just wasn't for me. The next book I read for the month was a nonfiction, and it is A Tale of Two Authors by Shawn and Platt. It is one that I received an ARC of through the Sterling and Stone group. This is a parable about 2 authors, and one is kind of a little hesitant, maybe doesn't jump on all the chances they could, and the other tries every new thing possible, and sometimes it bites them in the butt. They don't always review and plan and all the other things that they maybe should do ahead of time as well as they should. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. I did enjoy it. I enjoyed the parable, and I thought it was really interesting from an indie perspective to see kind of some of the challenges that these characters face, some of the decisions they made, some of the things that can go wrong. One of the issues I had, though, is at the end of the book, the girl who is the one that's kind of more hesitant, but she also ends up being a little bit better off in where she is trying to kind of get the guy who's her friend to do some of the same things she's doing. And they really fall in line with what Sterling and Stone have done, including creating a collaborative, which is a group. Sterling and Stone started out as a group of 3 friends, and now they're a huge, almost publishing co-op, I guess. I'm not really sure how you'd explain it, but they have a ton of people in their group who are assigned different projects, and it's a cool group. They can get a lot of things out, and it's neat what they're doing, but as an indie author, it's not something I would want to do. And at the end, they did kind of say, hey, you know, our way is not the only way. There's no right or wrong way to have your indie career. But I just felt like with the girl character at the end being like, hey, you should come and do exactly what I've done, and I'll teach you how to write and do this. It was just like, I didn't love that. I didn't love that part of the book. A lot of the other stuff I thought was very interesting, and it is told in a very non-fiction-y kind of way because it is a parable. So it's these hypothetical authors doing this thing, but it's all stuff that the Sterling and Stone guys have done, mistakes they've made. The most valuable part for me, because I have done a lot of the indie publishing, but I haven't done anything with movies or anything, is they had a section kind of about the challenges that the one character was making as he was getting his film or his book, like people wanted to make a film out of his book, and some of the things that he wasn't doing right with that. So I did think there were some valuable lessons in it. I did like it. I think it's more for beginners or for people who are like not set in their careers and aren't really sure what they're doing or how to do things. I'm not sure I was the right necessarily audience for it because I'm pretty comfortable with how I'm doing it, and I already do work with other authors, just not like in a co-op style thing. So it was good. I enjoyed it. I thought it had good messages, but I did feel a little frustrated with the way it sometimes presented it as this is the only way to do things. The next book I read was The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, which was an Agatha Christie mystery. And I think I'm going to do a video discussion on it, and it's going to be spoilery because I really enjoyed this book more than any of the other Agatha Christie's I've read so far. So this is my fourth Poirot mystery, and I did give it a 4 out of 5. My others have been a 3 out of 5. And it was my fourth one that I've read, but the one that I've liked the most and the one that I finally was like, this is some brilliant stuff. I like Agatha Christie and I like Poirot. However, one of the challenges I've been facing is a lot of times I don't feel like in the mysteries I'm given enough clues to solve it myself. And I watch a lot of mysteries. I like that challenge. I like trying to work along with the detective and be like, oh, this is what we're doing. This is how the mystery is solved. And I feel like I can't do that very much with the Poirot books because Poirot sees things like, oh, the shoes she's wearing, she must be the killer. Or, oh, he didn't have stained teeth, so he obviously didn't drink the coffee, so blah, blah, blah. This one, you do have kind of that issue, but the way it was done was so good that I really, like the twist at the end, I really liked. Especially considering it was something that probably wasn't done typically at that time. So I was excited about that. I thought that The Murder of Roger Ackroyd was a well-done, Agatha Christie, a well-done mystery. I enjoyed the heck out of it, as far as more than the other Poirots I've read so far. So far, it's my favorite. A couple things that I do get frustrated with in this book in particular, and Agatha Christie in general, is everybody just has such similar names, and there's always such a big cast of characters. Just to give you an idea, Roger Ackroyd is the one who died. He has a son named Ralph. There's also a secretary named Raymond, a housekeeper named Mrs. Russell, and then there is Flora Ackroyd, Mrs. Ackroyd, and then Ackroyd, who is the murdered. And it's just so much repetition. Nobody is, like, Mrs. Ackroyd, I don't think is ever called anything other than Mrs. Ackroyd. Flora Ackroyd, the daughter, sometimes it's called Flora Ackroyd, sometimes it's called Miss Ackroyd, sometimes it's called Flora. It just can get confusing who's who, especially because I did listen to this on audio. But without giving it away, it was good, and then the ending happened, and it was amazing. So I want to have a discussion about the ending, but it's super spoilery, because who did it just made the book for me. I loved it. It was great. 4 out of 5. And the best Poirot so far, in my opinion. The next book I read was a graphic novel, and it is Charles Darwin's On the Origin of Species, a graphic adaptation. And number one, it has some just beautiful, beautiful art. And I picked this up because next month I'm reading On the Origin of Species, the actual book. and for nonfiction November, and I was a little hesitant going on because sometimes nonfiction can be a little rough, and I wanted to make sure I was kind of comfortable with the concepts of it, and I was very interested in the book and the concept. So this was super easy to read. It broke down the concepts. There's really amazing pictures that I thought were beneficial. So if you're reading The Origin of Species and maybe want something that can give you some additional information, I really appreciated that with this. Also, there are little footnotes. Let me see if I can find one. There are little footnotes every now and then where there's updates on the science from this is what Charles Darwin believed and put in his book versus what we now know through further study. So I did find that extremely helpful as well. I do highly recommend this graphic novel if you have an interest in The Origin of Species, and I did give it a 4 out of 5. I'm a little more comfortable now with the fact that I'm going to read the actual Origin of Species in November. Still nervous, but pretty excited. All right, and the last book I read, and I had a hard time deciding on a rating for this because I was debating whether I wanted it to be a 4.5 or 4 or 5. And I settled on a 4.5, which I don't normally do because that's not really a rating I can give on Goodreads, and it's not something I can give on Amazon. And anyway, that was The Testaments by Margaret Atwood. So this is a kind of a companion novel to The Handmaid's Tale. It is not a sequel per se, because we don't follow Offred. We follow 3 other characters. One of them is Aunt Lydia, who you may remember from the first book, or from The Handmaid's Tale. And then there are 2 other girls that we follow. One is Agnes, who is being raised in Gilead. And the other, I think her name is Daisy, but one of the challenges with this book is that keeping track of everybody's names is a little challenging because they always have more than one name. But I believe the other girl starts out, her name is Daisy, and she is living in Canada and kind of seeing and hearing about Gilead from the outside. And I will say this is a tiny, tiny spoiler, but I don't think it's a huge spoiler. She ends up going into Gilead for reasons, and so we kind of get an outsider's perspective on Gilead, plus a little more of the historical information. This book is really good as far as explaining more about Gilead. It gives you more perspectives on Gilead. It kind of, I don't want to say wakes you up to some of the stuff that was going on that wasn't covered in The Handmaid's Tale, but I feel like that's not inaccurate. I really enjoyed this, but I didn't necessarily have the emotional attachment to the characters that I did with The Handmaid's Tale. So The Handmaid's Tale for me was a 5 out of 5. And this one I liked a lot. I liked above average for a book. I thought it was above averagely done. However, I didn't quite love it at the level that I loved The Handmaid's Tale, so I feel weird giving it a 5 out of 5 when it's not necessarily a favorite. It's not anything that I feel like I would read again necessarily. I think it brings a lot to The Handmaid's Tale and the world of The Handmaid's Tale, but I didn't connect with the characters the same way. And part of it is Agnes is fairly young at the beginning of this book, and so is Daisy. They are both kind of teenagers, and Agnes is very much indoctrinated with her culture. Daisy's a bit sassy and angry as a teenager, and then you have Aunt Lydia, who is kind of a villain. She does some very villainous things, and we understand why. She's a complicated character, and I think that was well done and that was brought out well. I just felt really frustrated at times because I couldn't latch onto a character and like them and sympathize with them and root for them exactly. And so I didn't connect with this the way that I did The Handmaid's Tale, but I thought this was great for viewing the world. So if you liked The Handmaid's Tale because of Offred and you're hoping this will tell you more about what happened to her, then it really doesn't. There is some like speculation of how she may have been connected to this book. But, you know, nothing is concrete, nothing is given, but this is more of a, hey, more information about Gilead, which was cool, was neat. I really, really, really enjoyed it. I'm glad I read it. There were moments that were hard to read, especially as somebody who had grown up very religious and had concerns about some of the aspects of religion that I grew up in and Gilead in general. So I liked it. I thought it was really well written. I thought it added a lot to the narrative of The Handmaid's Tale, but I didn't have the same emotional connection to this that I did The Handmaid's Tale. So 4.5, it was really, really good. I just couldn't quite love it as much as The Handmaid's Tale, which was a 5 out of 5 for me. So yeah, those were the books that didn't involve disability that I read during the month of October in 2019. Have you read any of these? If so, what were your thoughts? How did you feel if you've read The Murder of Roger Ackroyd? How did you feel about the twist ending? Don't reveal the twist ending, but how did you feel about it? Did you love it? Were you frustrated by it? What were your thoughts? I know that it's kind of controversial, and I'd watched books like Woe's review of The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, and it's not one of her favorites. It's kind of the middle of the road for her, which I thought was so interesting because for me, it has been my favorite, and our thoughts on it were very different. So, if you've read the Testaments, did you kind of feel the same way? Like, this is interesting, but I couldn't connect? Or did you like it more than The Handmaid's Tale? Just in general, I guess. Pop your thoughts below. If you haven't yet subscribed, please do that. Hit like if you enjoyed this video. Also, my social media is below if you'd like to connect with me off of YouTube. In addition, just throwing this out there, I'm a writer. I write romance if that's something you're interested in. I have several books on Kindle Unlimited. I also have books on Amazon and Smashwords if you would like to check any of them out. The links to all of that is below. I'll see you next time, guys. This is Jane. Bye.